My dad was a talent scout here at Raith Rovers. We're here at Starks Park this afternoon, and behind me is the McDermid stand, which I sponsored really in honour of my father's lifetime connection with the club. When I was a kid, he used to take me out at weekends to watch football matches that he was scouting for Raith Rovers. So we'd stand in the driving rain and the northeast gales, watching miners and shipbuilding workers kicking each other on asphalt pitches and dreich Scottish mornings and afternoons. And my dad would always take me through what he was looking for and why a player wasn't quite up to the mark. And it was fascinating for me. I loved it. Even in the sort of miserable winter weather, my dad would always take a plank of wood with him in the car so that we could lay that by the side of the pitch so we wouldn't sink into the mud up to our ankles as the guys kicked it out on the pitch in front of us. But my dad had a really good eye for a player, and I think he passed that on to me. I suppose I can watch a game now and spot when a player's playing well and when they're not playing well. But one of the players that my dad signed that I suppose I'm most proud of is Jim Baxter, the late great Slim Jim. My dad discovered him when he was playing for a club called Crossgates Primrose, and he was working down the pit at the time, and he was earning £3 a week down the pit. And my dad offered him riches beyond dreams of avarice, a whole £6 a week to come and play for Raith Rovers. And he played for us for a season and a half before Rangers snapped him up and took him all the way to the summit of his brilliant career. And another player that my dad signed was a guy called Ian Porterfield, who has ensured that I can get a free drink anytime I'm in Sunderland, as Ian Porterfield went on to score the winning goal for Sunderland in the 1973 Cup final. So whenever I think about football, I mean, the first thing that comes to my mind is generally standing in the rain, watching a bunch of guys running around with the beer slushing in their bellies, playing that kind of mad football on terrible pitches. A couple of seasons ago, my son was the game mascot here at Starks Park, and that was the fourth generation of my family that's been actively a part of this football club. And I think it's a kind of link not just to the place that you grew up to, not just your roots in terms of geography, but also your roots in terms of your family. You know, I know my father and his brother stood on those terracings where I first stood with my chin on the terracing rail. I know that he stood there with his father before him, and my son has now become part of that dynasty of Raith Rovers supporters. My outstanding memory of Raith Rovers is actually a game that I didn't see, but a game that I heard on the radio in the Cup final, when we were playing Celtic in the Cup final in the 1994-95 season. And it came down to penalties. And I was driving down the M62. I'd been doing an event in Hull, and I was driving back to Manchester, and I was listening to this on the radio. And when it got to the penalties, I was like gripping tightly to the wheel, you know. And as it got tighter and tighter, it was dead heat. And then Celtic captain Paul McStay missed his penalty, and I nearly drove off the motorway into the ditch. I was screaming, I was crying. It was just an extraordinary moment. It was one of those moments where you really wish you were somewhere else. But I'll never forget that moment. The sensationally good feeling, you know. The club at that time, I think we'd been a football club for about 112 years or something. That was the first major trophy we'd won. It's a triumph of hope over experience following clubs like Raith Rovers.